You chose this place.
Yes.
What is the reason for this?
This is the box shop. It was opened at the time that I was a Minister of Small Business Development, and there's the other coffee shop upstairs. For me, it was just the concept of having this legal space but turned into what you see happening here. That's the first thing. The second thing was it was also giving an opportunity to the fashion designers who in many instances are unable to access a market.
Your daughter, Pindile, is also in fashion. We understand that she's usually designing some of your clothes. Is this one of them?
Actually, what I'm wearing today is what she made for me. She
Lovely.
designed it. I said to her I wanted something that had a little bit of camouflage on it. Like, you know, I never get out of the military mentality, but, you know. My mother, because my parents never married, so we were left with my grandparents, my paternal side. When you look at it in hindsight, you think, oh, there's mother, father, and whatever. But for us, we didn't feel that difference of not having parents because our grandparents were like our parents. They did everything for us. Sometimes I actually feel my grandparents did much more than some parents would do even for their own children. Because my grandmother believed in education. Hence, she did everything she could to keep us in school, and she kept us in school. I was brought up by somebody that didn't have a government to go to. I just cannot sometimes fathom how she managed all that. It's just mind-blowing to think that my grandmother had 8 children in the home. So when I look at all my brothers and sisters and I see how they are standing on their own 2 feet and they do things for themselves today, it's all because we're brought up by a grandmother that said it is possible.
You fell pregnant in high school, right? You were 14.
Yeah, I was 15. Yeah, I was 15 and I was already doing my Form 3 then. It was December time and nobody knew, and I just managed to cover up all the time and nobody knew I was pregnant. Went to school properly because my grandmother was one that really, really wanted us to be educated. So as a result, even after having the baby, my grandmother said, just put the baby here, go back to school. I think they were terribly disappointed because I was the firstborn, firstly, I was their first grandchild. And they had hope, and my grandmother always used to tell me that she thinks I've got, I'm going to have a good life in front of me if only I could just finish school, because in her words she would say she sees quality in me, she sees me being something even better than what my father was from an education point of view. So they were terribly disappointed. But in the middle of all that disappointment, she still thought I have to continue with my education. I have to continue with school. And then again, I got pregnant again, which at that time then she had just lost hope, and she told me to just go live somewhere, not at home. I must find another place to go and live because she just cannot deal with this.
Being 15, being a mom, that responsibilities. What did you do with your children? Was there something that
I wasn't a mother.
Is it?
I just gave birth to children. I wasn't a mother at all. I wasn't a mother in the context of what mothers are. They give birth to children and then they are there for the children. They see, I wasn't a mother. I was a child myself. So my grandmother was a mother to those children. And I think that's one of the things that we never talk about. We never discuss what it is to be a mother at that age. Does actually a young girl of 16 know what is happening to her, other than the fact that she's pregnant and then she gives birth? The burden is on the parents or the grandparents, who then have to take care of those children, because at 16, there isn't that emotion and there isn't that attachment, other than the fact that you did give birth. to that child. And so I think for grandmothers of the time, we haven't really thanked them, in my view. Because what I'm telling you here now as Lindiwe Zulu, I'm replicated in thousands of other young girls at the time who found themselves in that space of getting pregnant. And I think that's where we need to take a step back and say, can we help ourselves to have children when we're ready to have the children, when we can take care of the children? My grandmother and my grandfather are the ones that carried the burden, including my aunt. Those are the people that carried the burden. Those are the people that poured the love onto my children. I was to do that way later in life. When I came back from exile, that's the time that I realized, oh, I'm a mother. Oh, this is what motherhood is. And that's when I can say I started really giving my children life as a mother. I met my daughters when they were 14 and 13 or 15 and 13. I met them the first time when I came back to South Africa in 1991, having left in 1979. They were teenagers already, and they were confused also about this mother who had left them, now who is now back. They would be told, your mom went to join the ANC and is in the struggle.
Do you have any regrets in terms of what happened to you when you fell pregnant at a very young age, becoming a mother? You say that you don't consider yourself to be a mother at that time.
Yes, I do, because not to have, you're a mother but you don't have that maternal connection to your children is a painful thing. And at the time that you're living it, you're not realizing it. You realize way later. I mean, like now, I see my daughters and their children, and I see my son with his child. I could reverse it and find myself in the space. My daughters love their children. My daughters take care of their children. My daughters are attached to their children. They will not want their children away from them. And that's what I look at, and I think that's what I missed. You understand? And I can't reverse it. But I then say, thank God I had a grandmother like my grandmother. Thank God I had my grandfather like my grandfather. Thank God I had a family that was very close-knit. My grandmother died in 1996. And by that time, I was already in the Gauteng legislature. So she did see that part. Firstly, for me, the excitement was for South Africa to be free, for my grandmother to come for treatment, because now we could afford, come for treatment in Johannesburg, go to a hospital proper. And so I think my grandparents are resting in peace because all their efforts have paid. And my grandmother's efforts have paid, I don't know how many times. But most importantly, the fact that I was able to come back and be able to take care of the very children that I didn't have anything with, I think my grandmother would be very proud of me from that side because I took responsibility.
Well, how tough was it in Angola? For you, being a woman, being confronted with these things? It was a man's world. At that time, women were not respected in the way that they are now. Their bodies were not respected.
Absolutely.
How tough was that?
It was hard because, look, you get to a camp, you do everything that they do, but when it comes to now being part of the top decision-making structure, being a commander, being a commissar, or being something like that, the women were always overlooked. And so ours was a double burden as women, because firstly we had to focus on why we were there and for the greater good, but then we also had to focus on this issue of men that didn't look at us like people who were capable, and yet they knew we were capable. So the same patriarchal problem that you see in South Africa today was the same patriarchal problem that was transferred from here to there. But in the camps, again, the fighting spirit never stopped, because we said, if all these years there are women who've been in these camps and they've never been recognized for what they do, it's not going to happen now. So we have two fights now. We have this fight of the struggle, and then you've got to carry this fight of convincing and fighting these men to say, why do you do this? And sometimes they make a joke of it, but again, the fighting spirit, as I say, we didn't sit back and allow that to happen. That's why you have women like Nosiviwe Mapisa Ngagula. She was one of the strongest fighters for women's rights and women's recognition in the camps. We have Tembi Majola, you have Ayanda Dlodlo.
Can you tell me one specific story, if you can think really hard, that really was a turning point in your life?
When we were ambushed by UNITA rebels coming from Luanda going to our camps, and we lost more than 20 comrades. More than 20 killed at the same time. It's a convoy. It's truck after truck and car after car, and they poured on us. We had to get off and fight them off. But by the time that was over, I think we had about 26 comrades lost.
Where were you at that moment? I mean, just doing what you were trained to do.
Yeah, was there.
You don't think
No.
of your comrades who just fell down here next to you.
No, I'm thinking of getting the one who's killed my comrade. That's all there is for me. The rest really doesn't matter. It's to protect each other, those of us who are still alive, but also go for the ones who have killed our comrades. And it was as simple as that. It's very difficult for people to understand it, but when you think of war, why people go to war and why people have to fight, we didn't think about it the way people would see it today. We did it because it was a cause that we were prepared to die for. And that's another thing that I feel sometimes we are made to feel bad about. You were prepared to kill. Yeah, but we were also being killed. Why is the story only when it comes to killing? It's only when we start to respond like that, then it's like we're doing the wrong thing, when the regime had been doing that ever since they arrived in South Africa. Ever since they arrived in 1652, they did nothing but brutalize our people.
Was there ever a moment where you thought, today might be the day that I'm going to die?
No. Because anytime there was an opportunity, I told myself I'm going to fight. I wasn't prepared to die. I wasn't going to allow, in the camps, remember that I told you earlier on that UNITA rebels used to want to come into our camps and we had to defend ourselves. At no moment did I say, oh, maybe now I'm going to die. No. Every moment, every minute, every time, mine was, whatever happens, I'm going to fight. That's all I knew, was that I'm going to fight. And I think that spirit of thinking like that, it never put me in a point of weakness. I always wanted to fight. Because also my life, I would go back to, now I understand why my grandparents felt like this. Now I understand why the people in KZN still talk about Shaka Zulu, Exile, and all of them. Now I understand why they speak about the wars of resistance. I saw myself as that soldier in the war of resistance. So a moment of weakness was never there.
Do you think our history books must actually be updated and what children...
Updating is an understatement.
To tell these stories.
Updating is an understatement. It's an indictment even on us. The fact that my grandson, when I ask him what history he's reading and I take the books, I say it's okay to do world history, because I did. Right up to university level, when I was a student at university, we did world history. But how do you do world history that excludes your history? I think South Africa is the worst country, because if you step out of here and go to Botswana, go to Lesotho, go to Swaziland, they have their books. You go to Zimbabwe, where people think whatever. They have books that are written in their own languages. In South Africa, for you to write a book and publish it, it's a nightmare. But I'm not saying we mustn't do world history. But can history start with our own history? So that there is an appreciation, so that the younger generation can have a better appreciation of who are we. Because the history books that we have are still written from the eyes of those who came and colonized us and decided that the history that we must learn is of King George and all those people. We need to change that.
Also interesting, you went to go and study your master's. You went all right through to your master's in Russia for journalism, right? Can you still speak Russian? Can you
Yes.
say something to us? Anything that you would like to, a message for our listeners in Russian?
I can say Dobry Utra, which is good morning, and Gagdila is how are you, and say that my name, Меня зовут Lindiwe Zulu.
Lovely.
My name is
Lindiwe
Lindiwe Zulu.
Zulu.
Yeah.
Minister, we know that sometimes people also call you Ginger. Do you hate it?
No.
I hate it when people call me Ginger. I just have to
No,
ask you.
I don't
Yeah.
actually, because that name came not in the bad gesture that you see in Parliament all the time. It came at a time where it was a bit of fun. And I wasn't offended by it at all. Also because I just think that we all South Africans, when all is said and done. We might belong to different political parties, but if there's one thing that I would defend all my life, is to have people having their choices. They make their choices. I made my choice to join the African National Congress. Other people have got the right. That's why we have a multi-party democracy. You can see us fighting, or you can see us screaming at each other, but when all is said and done, we are South Africans with a quest to just fix our country.